Hello, everybody.
Woo!
My name is Benjamin Hart. My co-author needs very little introduction.
I am Kristen Bell. I am Benjamin Hart's co-author.
Oh, you guys have tuned in to 45 minutes to an hour of pointless banter.
Yes.
We are excited. We're very excited for that. Thank you all for being here to celebrate our new book, The World Needs More Purple People.
I got her too.
Illustrated by the genius himself,
Yep.
Daniel Weissman. Thank you, Daniel. And today is about learning a little more about our book. We are going to tell you a little bit about how we created it and then answer some questions. And then also, if you want signed copies, you need to go to premiercollectibles.com/purple. See what we did there?
Yep.
/purple. premiercollectibles.com/purple for signed copies. So we'll be signing. All right.
There's a link and nobody needed to write it down right now.
Well, I think they're on. I think they knew about it and that's how they got here, but they're probably.
But for safety's sake, go back to the site, premiercollectibles/purple. We got it.
Get a signed book. All right. Why don't you tell everyone how we started this book as we start to sign?
As we start to sign, it's really interesting because, Ben, I guess, has written before, but I never have, and I certainly never thought I would become an author in any way, shape, or form. But Ben and I had a conversation about 2 years ago, sitting out at an outside picnic table with all of our kids running around. We just felt like it was a really, really important idea. And we were like, gosh, do we need to write a book? Shoot, how do we write a book? But so then we went on this fabulous journey with Random House. But the idea was basically we had come away from the picnic table with a bunch of friends having had a stimulating debate. I'm sure it involved politics, but it was very much, I think this, well, no, you're wrong, because actually, and it occurred to us, to Ben and I afterwards, all our kids were running around and they were all young. And we thought, what if you just heard that conversation? Wouldn't you think adults argue a lot and they're talking about differences a lot? And how do you teach kids and people in general to look for sameness before they look for differences? Because that, I think, is the key to certainly why I've been so happy in my life. I mean, I get that question a lot of like, how do you stay so optimistic? Because I don't look around me and see enemies, whether I'm walking down the street, if I turn on the television, even if I turn on a channel I disagree with, I don't see enemies. I just see people like me that have a different opinion. And I'm able to sort of stay open to their point of view and at least not put them in the enemy category. So we thought, what if we wrote a book where we took some characteristics that were inarguably great characteristics, like working super hard, asking great questions, laughing a lot. I dare you to find me a human being on this planet that's like, laughing, working, and asking great questions are terrible characteristics. It just doesn't exist. Those everyone can do, right? So then we've kind of done something purple. We've started from a place of agreement, of similarities. And it's just sort of that concept. And we created this character named Penny, who basically tells us what it means to be a purple person. And I will add this. We struggled for a long time to, I guess, try to figure out how to say this is a label that includes everyone, because labels by nature don't include everyone, right? That's why they're a label. Only the label human being includes all of us. Everything else you can sort of take people out of it. But we like to say purple people come in every color. So everyone can be a purple person if they want to. Ben, do you want to say anything about how or why we wrote it?
I mean, you summed it up well. I think what struck us is beyond just hearing our conversation, we thought there's all these little clues out in the world for our kids. They see them, they hear them all the time that sort of give them the social identity that's so small. Basically, the stories are so small to say, like, if you're this, you're not this. If you're blue, you're not red. Red's the bad, blue's the bad. And beyond just the conversation, there's all these little visual identity clues all the time going on. Mm-hmm. And so really being about purple is a bigger story. How do we find ourselves in a bigger story that does do things like celebrate what makes us different, at the same time of nurturing an identity of self-acceptance that inherently nurtures an identity of acceptance of others. And that's like a really beautiful thing that I think our kids do, and then we kind of mess it up for them. Our kids are just, they come out that way, and we do such a bad job of giving them all these small stories and not a great job of being like, no, here's the big story. How are you purple today? Let's look for the purple things together, and how are you that? So that really is the why behind the book. And then the how.
It is true though, because like anyone who's scared of differences, you could think of 1,000 examples how to break that down and go, okay, so you want to eat the same meal every night for the rest of your life? Or like, are different meals awesome?
Yep.
Like there's so many examples to make it inarguable. And we just wanted to create this world where you could run towards being purple and love differences and not be scared by them. Because I think it can be paralyzing when you have too much fear about differences and it really doesn't even mean anything. It's not warranted.
It's like we're not all made of the same stuff, which is just ridiculous. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the steps in the book to become purple. We don't want to give them all away. We'd love for you to give the book, but I think they're important to highlight because it is about, there's some key things that we think are good for just kids and adults in general. One is, the first step is asking really great questions. And my favorite part is that purple questions help you learn something really big about the world or something really small about another person. And that to me really is about empathy building. How do we promote in our kids curiosity and empathy building, and how do they learn as many names and stories as they can? And especially today, empathy building just feels like that's got to be the anchor to what we're doing. Curiosity, empathy building, asking great questions. And then the second step, which is laugh a lot, that was just fast on the heels for you and I, because that is where we spent most of our time as a group and as people, is honestly just doing a lot of fart jokes and things of that nature that bring the world together and have throughout history.
And
being silly.
Put that step in the book, but I don't care who you are. Even if you're really, really uptight, you hear a fart joke, even if you have to close your bedroom door before you giggle, you're going to giggle. It's funny.
You are. Even if you're uptight, in your head, you are laughing so hard.
Your body knows it's funny.
Your body knows it's funny. So that was, for us with kids too, it is really about promoting play and silliness, which we all know is like, there's great science for both kids and adults that play and silliness are what help us be creative, help us find commonality, help us succeed and be creative. And that was really important for us as well. And then the third step, which is to use your voice, is a really, really important one for us. And
can I just go back 1 second? Because I feel like I'm not going to add someone else's voice into this conversation. I mean, I don't really know the demographic of who we're talking to right now, but if there are any people out there who sort of read Brene Brown's writing or anything, I remember my husband was interviewing Brene Brown and they were talking about social groups and the danger of becoming part of a social group that bonds over what they dislike. Yep. And I'd never really thought about that before, but like Ben and I could become friends and be like, oh, wow, I hate
cat people
or you too, or whatever. And then be like, Ben would be like, yeah, me too. Then all of a sudden we've created this relationship where it's about what we dislike and not what we like. And laughing diffuses all of that, because if you're laughing at the same joke as someone else, or the same time you tripped or something, whatever you're laughing about, you're laughing about something you both enjoyed. and you're building a foundation of commonality about enjoyment, not about dislikes. Because sometimes as adults, we can agree that dislike brings us together. I'll tell you, for starters, my best friend Monica and I, one of the reasons that we're so close is because we both hate goat cheese. Okay, that's a fact.
That's a weird thing about you guys.
But it's not our only thing, and it wasn't our first thing.
Yeah, but you know what? I celebrate your differences about goat cheese. And you have not just you really hate it. I mean,
I can't stand it.
It's a strong aversion. You can smell it from a mile away.
No good.
So the next step is to use your voice. And this one's huge because a purple voice doesn't just use their voice to say their opinions or an argument, but it uses their voice to help someone who may have trouble finding their own.
Can I show one of these pages or no?
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is one of my absolute favorites as well. A purple voice helps someone who's having trouble finding their own voice. And this girl here is saying, maybe you could tell them you don't like it when they call you that name. Want me to help you tell them? Because we talk about sometimes you lose your voice, and that's okay. And that just means insecurity or when you get sort of paralyzed by fear. But a purple person helps break you out of that. And they come out and slowly and they say, do you maybe want to say this? Could I help you do this? Or they ask great questions, but they also listen.
Yep. And listening is half the battle to that. Use a purple voice. And I think that was important for us too. It's not about who's shouting the loudest. It's about also a posture of listening, which is great. And then the fourth step, which was also so important for you and I, and you were the embodiment of this, is purple people work really hard. And no one works harder than K-Bell. I am a close second, I feel sometimes, but you're in the lead. But beyond just like being workaholics, which is not a healthy version of what that is, it is about grit and tenacity for our kids. It's about overcoming adversity and working together to solve big things. Purple work is done to fix things that need fixing and to help people that need helping. And that's kind of our framework. The last step is maybe a secret. It's a celebration of being you. We don't want to give away the whole book. We want you to get the book. But step 5 is pretty fantastic. And
also, I just want to say, because this is so topical and we have to continue this conversation, but this is sort of an easy way if you really don't know how to explain to your kids what's happening right now. Let me start by saying there are probably way better books to explain what's happening right now. But what we've tried to include in our book is a little bit of an introduction to what it means to, well, I'll just read you the sentence because I can't say it better. Purple work is the kind of work that's done together to change something that needs changing. And we have the kids here saying, what do we want? More playgrounds. When do we want them? Now. So this is all in line with using your voice, working hard, and coming together to change something that needs changing. And I just think it's I'm really glad that included this page, because I think now more than ever, it's really important for people of all ages to understand that their voice can be used for a common goal in a group to make things better.
And to change things that are broken, that need changing. And I think that's so important as well. So that is the framework of our fun, silly little goofy book. We hope you like it and get to read it. But now I think is the time where we jump into questions, user questions.
User questions.
Not user questions, but book buyer questions. I think they bought the book.
Did we make this t-shirt, Kristen? Yes. The answer is yes. I did make this t-shirt. And I'm a purple person t-shirt.
Yeah. And we might actually make more t-shirts. If you go to purplepeoplebook.com, you can look at our store that's coming up for purple gear, which would be very cool.
And you can tell us if you want t-shirts, because if you want them, we'll make them.
We will make them. So why did you choose the color purple? Tony from Las Vegas. I think we dug into that a little bit. It really went to the visual clues for us. So a lot of red and blue that positions our country in opposition to each other. And those are just psychological visual cues that are hitting our kids all the time. And so we wanted to say, when those two come together, there's this magical color, purple, and that is the bigger question. Plus, as we looked at all of the ways to tell this idea through story, purple started to make a lot of sense in helping kids, again, have that social identity that says, I'm a purple person, and can we figure out how to own that as a community and say, yeah, that means something, and what does that mean? And so that's purple. Any other? I mean, it's just a cool color.
Hey, it's a great color, as a nail color as anything. But yeah, it really was to not dig in too much to it, because we didn't want to hit people over the head with it, but it occurred to us that our children, every time we turn on the news or talk, they see red and blue everywhere, and they see them separated. They just see it. They absorb it subconsciously. So what if we created something that brought those together?
Yep. Let's see. Oh, a funny thing. I just read the book for my son, who's in second grade, his whole class, which made my heart burst. It was wonderful, and he was very proud of me, and that made me very happy. But the class did an activity after where they sent, hey, what did the book mean to you? And there was just amazing stuff coming out of that. That was so wonderful. But one little boy was like, it was all right. I would have chose green over purple. I wish they would have chosen green, but the book was fine. It's good.
You know what? A purple person can choose a different color.
Some of them feel blue sometimes, some feel green, some even have green hair. Purple people come in all shapes, colors, sizes. Do you have any special memories from when you first read the book to your own children? What were their reactions? Nikki from New Jersey.
Nikki, my kids could have given a flying hoot before we had illustrations. Yeah. When it was just written words on a page and Ben and I were so excited, they were like, who cares? Where the picture's at? So when we brought Daniel Weissman on, who is such an incredible illustrator, and I really like the fact that he's very quirky and very sincere at the same time, which I think is a good mix of Ben and I. Then my kids got really interested. They got interested in the diversity. They got interested in the fact that there are children in the book, because we really like to drive home the issue that purple people come in every color, every size, every shape. You can imagine. We drew some purple, Daniel, drew some purple people, I'll hit you with it, that have different facial expressions. Because one thing, that I don't want to do to my kids is make sure that I tell them all the time, be happy, just be happy, be happy. I don't want them to fear being sad or feeling their own pain. I think those are incredibly just emotions to own in your life, and we're all allowed to have them. So there's actually people in the book, like you can see, like this boy feels blue and this girl feels a little angry. And so there's different expressions on the kids' faces too, to represent how people are feeling. And that was one thing my kids really loved. Yeah.
Same with my kids. They did not care when I was showing them my Google Doc that I had written a book. And then when we got it, they were very proud. And that's been pretty fun. My daughter read it to her friends in a social distance party, and 6 feet apart. And I got to read it for my son's class, and I get to read it for their school this week. And those things are honestly very, very fun to see them responding well to it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. What else we got? What made you decide to write this book together? Kimberly, I think we talked about that. Oh, that's nice.
I'll order these because I'm signing so many.
I think some folks showed up for us. Thank you. And these are the folks who showed up for us. They are asking the questions.
Look at that. Woo! Get them while they're hot.
So Diego from Panorama City, right here in our hometown. Were you influenced by other children's books when writing yours? Great question. Any children's books? You talk a lot about Quackenstein.
I couldn't talk more about Quackenstein because I do.
I hope someone just cuts that out of here. I couldn't talk more about Quackenstein.
Talk more about Quackenstein. So first of all, get Purple People, obviously great, but also get Quackenstein. Quackenstein is a book that I'm just addicted to for a variety of reasons. It's by a writer whose name is difficult to remember, but her name is Sudipta Bardhan-Quallen. She's written a couple children's books. They're all great. But Quackenstein is about a crotchety old duck who lives in the zoo. And he sees that all the zoo animals are having babies, and he decides to adopt an egg that's been abandoned, and the egg doesn't look anything like him. And it's about his fear when the egg cracks and about his finding of love for this baby. And it is written in this prose that's like incredibly multisyllabic words. So I remember when I was reading that book to my kids at 3 years old, she was saying, 3 or 4 syllable words just because we read Quackenstein every night. So I think Sudipta has it was a great metaphor to me about loving the other, about sort of foster care, adoption, about there's no such thing as other people's children, and also a language stuff in it. So I don't know if it directly influenced writing Purple People, but it certainly set the bar very high.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, there's so many that we loved when my kids were a little bit more in the picture book age. They're growing out of that just a bit. Narwhal and Jelly is a book in a series that I just love to death from its playfulness. And so I wanted our book to not just be, I hate when people are preachy in books as well, of like, that's not always working with young kids. Like they also want fun and silly. And our second step was about laughing a lot and being silly. And so even though we were trying to say a really big thing about the world, I also wanted it to be rooted in silliness and funny. And that was so representative of your voice as well. And so I think those books do a really good job of being silly and taking little shots here and there at jokes that are great. And so that was certainly one that I think I was looking at. But there was a lot. I mean, we could go on and on about good books, I think, on here. From a children's book perspective, of the ones that are way better than ours. I mean, ours is great, but
there are and by the way, a lot of people have been posting a lot of great diversity-oriented books right now, which I've ordered all of them for my kids, and I'm very excited. Lupita Nyong'o wrote a great book recently that's called, I want to say Sulwe?
I don't know.
Something like that. I've only read it once, so I can't remember the title, but it's like Sulwe. Also, I have girls. I really like Dear Girl because it's about protecting yourself and all the things that you might need. And it just says like, Dear Girl, keep your room clean and messy. Dear Girl, write something down every day, even if it's just to feel the pen touch the paper. It's just all about sort of a little bit of self-care for females, which I really like, but it's written really simply so kids can understand.
Yep. I love that. There's 2 books right now that I would prefer people to also buy with ours that are competing in Amazon right now. The first one is Anti-Racist Baby by Ibram Kendi. I would recommend getting that book. I hope it cleans our clock in Amazon as well.
That one first.
Yep. And then also You Matter by Christian Robinson. I think that one, those 2, especially for the time right now, would be great books to add to your library. I think You Matter is out. I think Anti-Racist Baby is pre-order, but I would suggest getting it.
But How to Be an Anti-Racist If You're an Adult by Ibram is not pre-order. I believe it's out right now.
That one's out.
And Dax is actually interviewing Ibram right as we speak right now.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Okay. This one's fun. Alvaro from Florida says, what kind of animal would you love to show in person to your great grandchildren?
Wow.
That is an amazing question. Purple people ask great questions.
Wait, purple people also ask questions about questions. So I'm going to
Yep.
answer that question with another question. Are we talking an animal that we know, like my favorite dog? Because that's my instinct, is to say,
Yep.
like, I would like to introduce my favorite dog, my dog right now, to my grandkids. Or do you mean like an animal that may or may not go extinct?
Yeah, because that's the thing, like your great grandchildren, there's so much in there. And then we're also doing it in person.
Hmm.
And so I personally hope elephants are still around. That would be amazing. And polar bears. Let's go with polar bears, because if polar bears are around with my great grandchildren, my assumption is we've gotten our act together and I can show them a polar bear, but I do it in the wild.
Yeah, I'm going to say gorillas.
That's a good one.
They're so majestic, and it's, my husband studied anthropology and
Oh,
primatology.
really? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, and it's funny because he doesn't remind anyone about it every single day. But he often chooses parallels between the ape world because we are apes, right? We have to remember that we're sort of like our systems, these systems in here are built the same way. And we can sort of learn so much about the way that they behave and about their positive qualities and about their flaws by looking at other groups of animals. And the one that we are far and away so similar to is the beautiful, majestic vegetarian gorilla.
Beautiful, majestic vegetarian gorilla. What is your favorite board game from Megan in Lake Forest, California?
Come on.
Catan.
There's only one board game to be had, and it is Catan. And it is the one where if you really want to fight with your family at the dinner table, don't talk about politics, play Catan.
Is it still banned in your home?
It's not banned, but there's a new set of rules surrounding it. So we had gotten into a situation where our friends Monica and Jess and Dax and I played 2 nights a week for probably 2 years.
That was a stretch, yeah.
It was a very, very long, intense addiction. And so much so that we had all these side rules. And, for Father's Day, I made Dax this leather card case because we had busted all the paper ones, and I engraved our initials on it, Dax, Jess, Monica, Kristen. And there was a lot of fighting. There were a couple times we went to bed angry. There were definitely screaming matches. And we decided that we needed a safe word. And so now if we play Catan and anybody gets upset, someone has to say anaconda, and then everyone has to go, it's just a game. And that diffuses a little bit of the energy, but not much.
Not much. So that is your favorite board game?
Without question. Is Catan yours too, Ben? I mean, I know we've played, but.
Yeah, we had a long stretch. Board game, so we do a lot of the fun. We like Sorry a lot at our house. Because it's devastating. It's devastating when you just get to knock someone's thing off the board. But I think my favorite is when we just do game nights with the buddies. So like when we play Codenames or some of those ones.
Codenames. I feel like not a lot of people know about Codenames.
That's a great game.
Codenames is an incredible game, and it's like word association. There's you flip over, I don't know, I'm going to say 20 cards or something, 24 cards, and they all have different words on them, like bus, hat, China, river, and you basically have to figure out how to combine 2 of them and give your partner a clue, and they have to guess those exact 2 cards. It's really interesting, and it
a one-word clue, which is fun, because then you have to come up with one word that they can try to get as many of those on there. It is very
great game.
We just got a kid version for our house. There's a kid one. That's like, it's got like Disney pictures and stuff, and you try to do the clues. It's fun. It's tough. I think there's definitely an age range.
You know, the other thing we've just started doing is, actually, I'll share this story because I think it's so cool. So riddles. We really like riddles in our household, and Dax has been putting my oldest daughter to bed, and I've been putting the youngest one to bed for like a week, and I can hear them, and he's been giving her riddles, and you know, like he'll say to her, a rooster lays an egg on the top of a triangle roof. Which way does the egg roll down? And then she thinks about it. She can't figure it out. And then, you know, the answer is roosters don't lay eggs. Right. And he said to her, this old one, does anyone remember this riddle? Because this in the 80s and 90s was a really, really big riddle. A father and a son are in a car accident, and the father passes away, and the son is rushed to the emergency room, and he is rolled into surgery, and the surgeon looks down and says, I cannot operate on this boy. This boy is my son. And you have to figure it out. And no one in the 90s get it, because they're like,
we do this one a lot too. It's very telling.
You know what my daughter said the other night?
What?
She goes, okay, the surgeon is his mom. What's the riddle?
That is amazing.
I was like, yes, you're growing up in a world where you can assume immediately a surgeon would be a woman. Of course. In the 80s and 90s, it wasn't as familiar.
No, we have the best stories. We told a teenage neighbor of ours this riddle, and his answer was like, is it two dads?
Yes.
And I was like, that's mildly progressive. Like, we're at least acknowledging same-sex couples now in a very healthy way, but still very far off from saying women are very capable surgeons.
Yeah. So the whole point of that story was that we sometimes do riddles just at night, like with the family. We'll just like read from a book of riddles, and it's really fun instead of a board.
We like riddles too at restaurants when we went.
Damn. Not leaving you much space on these, Ben.
Well, I've got.
Oh, okay. Oh, you want me to?
I'll
sign on the
bottom. Well, no, people can get flipped.
Because we're going to have to sanitize all these and then switch them at some point.
This is a great one. This is a big one. Haley from California. I'm a child therapist, and I want to add this to my client library with a personal note from you. What would you say to a kiddo who is uncomfortable feeling different? That's a big question.
I mean, because okay, first of all, I am not a child therapist. Is she a child therapist?
She's a child therapist.
Okay, I'm not a child therapist.
She's going to have more expertise here.
100%. But what I guess I would go out on a limb and say is what my girls don't respond to is all the adult language of it's fine, feel fine. I would use a concrete example, I think, and Haley, you can obviously tell us if this even works because you know the data. I would give the concrete example of dinner and say, do you think it would be fun to have the same meal every night for the rest of your life? Or do you think that it would be better to have different meals? That's kind of like people. Because I think, even though they don't understand what a sort of metaphor or a parallel is yet, they can, when they sense it, they sense it. At least my kids do. So I'd use a concrete example like that because I can't think of one person who wants the same meal for the rest of their life.
I love that.
What about you, Ben?
Oh, that is tough. I mean, having kids, what's so fascinating is through a large period of their life, they are trying everything they can to not feel like they are different as well. Mm-hmm. They really do not like that feeling. And so hey, we're celebrating you because you're different does not, you're right. That is not language that they immediately are like, great. And so I don't know. I think what I'm hopeful is that honestly, our language and our story here helps. Of like, hey, we're purple people. That's the commonality. And purple people look all ways and They are very different and they feel different ways. Again, going back to your facial expressions. And that's what makes us purple people, and that's okay.
I would also add that we have in our household, and maybe this is because we're comedians, I don't know, but we really celebrate the weirdness of
Yeah, we do too.
We have it almost feels like contests of who can be weirder. You know, my daughters will come out of their room in like a bizarre outfit. And I'm like, yes, 10 points for weird right now. You are such a wonderful weirdo. I love how weird you are. Like, we've embraced that word of weird because we wanted to take it back so that if you were ever called it on the playground, it would have no meaning. And yeah, we really, really love that word. And I think also, you know, I'm doing a cartoon right now on Apple called Central Park. And
it's wonderful. I started it.
Thank you. I'm really proud of it. And my character is a 13-year-old girl who is really socially awkward, but she draws comic books and she has this whole big, beautiful world inside her head, which I think is how adolescents kind of are. They have this beautiful world inside their head. And it's a musical, by the way. And the first song she sings is "Weirdos Make Great Superheroes."
Oh.
And people sing that all the time. And I just think embracing some of those words back in the family zone where everything is safe and comfortable can also help as far as liking your differences or liking the fact that you're a bit of a weirdo.
Yep. Wonderful. Okay, Kristen, what do you find more challenging, writing or acting?
Writing, because it's permanent. You have to really write it down. I can talk my way out of almost anything because I'll just keep talking and talking until you've forgotten the question that you've asked. That's my MO.
Well, I also think that you are the Michael Jordan of acting, getting to see it firsthand. It's like it's like an acting robot in that
programmable computer. Yes,
you just kick into this level that is phenomenal to watch, and it seems like it comes very easy to you.
Well, you know what it is. We've discussed this in my household recently, which is funny. And I think I've identified I am more comfortable with nonverbal communication. And I think that's why I like dogs so much. And I think that's why I have auditory sensitivities, like when there's too much talking or, you know, when I can get overwhelmed easily, which is ironic because I talk too much. But I think that words I've never been comfortable with, but nonverbal communication, if I could have like 2 days a week where my whole family wouldn't talk and we would just communicate non-verbally, you know, like if I wanted to say, Ben, do you want something to drink? But instead on that day, I'd go, and you could give me a thumbs up, I would be so much happier and it would be so peaceful for my brain. But acting is a lot of that, right? It's you get the writer's script, and then you have the job of inserting all these nonverbal cues throughout the story to provide a temperature that the audience can pick up on. And then the editor sequences those images. And hopefully it's a beautiful rise and fall of a television show or a film. So I think it's because I really like nonverbal communication.
That is a wonderful answer. They did not ask me, but I would pick writing because when a camera's on, I basically turn into this guy who's like, excuse me, I have a dry throat. So I very much prefer a computer and keyboard. Carrie, thank you for asking. Okay, speaking of dogs, any special advice for my dogs, Olive and Gizmo, who are the children I will be reading this book to? Elizabeth from Virginia.
Special advice? No. I mean, I think, you know, I will tell you this. We wrote this book as a children's book for a very specific, tricky reason. Because if we wrote an adult book about this concept, we'd only get the adults, right? But if you write a children's book, there's a high probability that there's either going to be an adult in the room or reading it to the child. So we hit 2 demographics. The fact that you are reading it to your dogs hits 3. And
let's break those 3 down.
We need adults, kids, dogs. I don't think there's anything wrong with reading it to your dogs. I think if anything, even if they're confused, they will love the affectionate time you're spending with them.
I agree. It's soothing. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? Star from Durham, North Carolina.
Sorry, this is like no contest. It is chocolate peanut butter from Baskin Robbins.
Oh, pretty good.
There is no comparable ice cream in my, and look, there's a lot of, especially here in LA, where it's like, you know, the
Fancy
world.
ice cream. Yeah.
Yeah, like fancy boutique shops, like little mom and pop. They're, you know, milking the cow and then making it right into the ice cream. And there's a lot of delicious flavors. Jenny's is great. McConnell's is great. But I just don't think anything compares to the good old Baskin Robbins chocolate peanut butter. What about you, Ben?
Sweet cream from McConnell's. It's basically like glorified vanilla, and that kind of adds up if we are looking at the whole picture. Like the story checks out there.
It does.
All right. Which Harry Potter house do you belong to? Do you know this question?
I do.
You do? I know.
What's interesting is that I've taken the quiz 2 times. When I took it by myself and I was answering in a way that I felt was really honest and not trying too hard, I was Ravenclaw.
Okay.
And then when I took it, when Monica gave it to me, she said, I don't feel like you're Ravenclaw. And she took it again. And then when I was answering in front of a group of people that I cared about how they took my answers, I was Hufflepuff.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know. I guess the answer is I don't know. I think I'm really close between Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. Because I feel like you might think I'm a Hufflepuff, but in my soul, I care about wisdom and knowledge and accuracy so much that I might be a Ravenclaw. What about you, Ben?
I've gotten 3 answers. I've gotten Gryffindor, and I've gotten Hufflepuff, and I've gotten Ravenclaw. I'm not evil, is all I know.
One of my daughters got Slytherin.
Really?
Can you believe that? She was so proud, and she's kind of the evil one too. So checks out as well.
We'll talk offline about my confirmed suspicions on who. What was your favorite part about writing the book together? Well, this goes to Harry Potter because I know one of our favorite parts was in one of the steps. The grandma and Penny are reading funny books together, and that's why they're laughing. And one of our favorite parts was pitching book titles for the books that they were funny books they were reading. How to Tickle a Dog was one of the ones that made it in there. Mm-hmm. Gargoyles Love Enchiladas. We did a little riff there. And then one of our other favorites that didn't make it in was Harry Otters. And it was going to be otters in Harry Potter wizard costumes. And that was one of our favorite parts.
I mean, I would say all of them were my favorite parts because here's one thing you guys may not know about Ben and I. Ben and I were socially friends before we ever started working together. And Purple People is not our first business project together because Ben also basically runs Hello Bello and drew the pictures that are on the bottle and draws the diaper patterns and has come up with a ton of the language, basically like talking to Dax and I about what we want and what we want the brand to stand for and how we want it to be irreverent and funny and goofy and see the word poop because they catch poop. That's what diapers do. So let's not shy away from it. And Ben helped us put that in language. But we hired Ben because he's a genius. But he was just a social friend first. We were just really good friends. And then as we became closer and closer and I started learning about what his work does in marketing and in writing, I was just astounded. And I was like, why would I not want to work with one of my best friends?
Yes. Well, thank you.
I will also say, I read it to a couple children's classes as well. I'm on a school board out here in Los Angeles, and I've read it to a couple of their kindergarten and a couple of their first grade classes through Zoom. And I always stop to read the kids the titles of the books. And they laugh at How to Tickle Your Dog, but they're incredibly impressed with Gargoyles Love Enchiladas because I always stop and I go, wait a minute, does that sound like anything you guys know? And they always scream, Dragons Love Tacos, which is also another great kids book.
Oh, it's a great kids book.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we've got time for one more question. Let's find a doozy.
You know what another great kids book is?
Hit me.
Remembered, We Do Not Eat Our Classmates.
Oh, I don't know that one.
I mean, about a dinosaur that goes to school for the first time. And I don't know if you know about this one, but Ben, because we just got it, but it's called We Do Not Eat Our Classmates. And it's
Oh, I love it.
really good.
Okay, this one's from Paul. This will be nice. So, Paul says, now I'm going to say that we'll get some easy ones out of the way. So Paul says, who's the most purple person you know? Paul W. from Charlotte, North Carolina. So the easy ones are Kristen Bell is an incredibly purple person. You are an embodiment of what I think this idea means, and I will heap a ton of praise on you in another venue. I assume you think I'm mildly purple. That's very flattering. Thank you. Now, being a purple person comes in also different steps. So there's a lot of people who have inspired me in each of the different steps as well to be purple. And so when we have things like who asks really good questions, well, I think of our mutual buddy, Pete, who asks the best questions that I know of anyone, and we spend a lot of time. Dax also asks phenomenal questions. And I think he's someone who does that. But I also think of like my early educators. I had this one teacher in high school. I think we all had that one who helped me think differently about the world through question asking. So I think it goes by step. Any purple people that jump out to you in any of the steps?
Yeah, I would agree with Pete and Dax, and I would also say we have mutual friends named Amy and Ryan. I mean, I'm thinking less about people we all may know in the public eye and more about my close circle of friends, because to be honest, those are the ones I feel I know are the purplest, or not purplest, but the ones that I'm most familiar with being purple. And it's because I've chosen to surround myself, and I've been really lucky, and you're one of them, Ben, to have a group of friends that are incredibly purple, that they're kind and they're hard workers, but they also do challenge us and ask really great questions. But they all do it in a way that's incredibly safe and with the intent to evolve. And so I would say Ryan and Amy. Also, my best friend Monica is incredibly purple.
Very purple. My beautiful wife, Courtney Hart, very purple. Maybe one of very purple. And then, of course, I think as my children are even looking at me, they're right off to the side on this one. But they, and I know your kids too, really inspired us to write this book because I think what's interesting is we are not really teaching our kids much with this book. We are putting language to what's already there for them. And I think that's really important. I think our kids are really, and especially this generation, has the best generation in history to have a social identity that's oriented towards other people in common creed and cause. They are wired to see that purpleness in each other. Kids are innately curious. They're already silly and laugh a lot. They are just wired to want to work hard at stuff. And so putting language to that and encouraging it really is what we're trying to do here. And I think it started with our little dudes, who we are very proud of. Hear that, guys? Good.
Maybe more so than mine, because mine are still a little bit dealing with they're just getting out of that mine phase, but it's only a phase. And yes, and I do feel like whenever we read this book, to them, it is like, duh. Oh, but that was a great story because it put language to things I was already feeling or developing feelings for, trying to feel, because they knew it was right. These kids, we just have to not mess them up. They're already
doing pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll do good if we don't dopily screw things up for them. And on that lovely note, we can end this wonderful live thing. And so thank you so much to everyone who joined. We are very grateful for all your love and support and purchasing our book and asking questions.
And I hope you want some of these things that Ben and I have been signing, because he's got, hold yours up, Ben. Yeah, so we've signed them, and then we're gonna obviously sanitize them and send them on to the other person. So each one's gonna have both of our signatures. But I hope that makes you happy, and then you can get those again on premiercollectibles.com/purple.
Wonderful.
Thank you guys for joining us.